You're listening to the Create What You Speak podcast, where I invite you to come along with me as we shape our own reality together. My intention is to bring out the magic in you. Now let's get started.
Run away from the humdrum. We'll go to a place that is safe from greed, anger, and boredom. We'll dance and sing till sundown and feast with abandon. We'll sleep when the morning comes and we'll rise by the sound of the bird song.
My name is Sloan Fremont, and today I'm going to talk to you about making your own rules and why it's so worth it to do so. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about forging your own path as part of showing up and fully expressing yourself, and how doing this is just so worth figuring out. This topic wraps up our monthly magical intention of showing up and fully expressing yourself. So let's get started.
So right, hold back tonight, wait till it's right. Then you fold your hand into mine. Watch as the waves fall back into place. So don't you leave me there wanting more.
I want to start out the show today by reading you a post from someone I follow on Instagram called A Message of Love. And this was posted on January 20th. And I love this, what they posted here, this quote, because it's really going to set the tone for our topic today. So here's what it said. There's no need to do what other people did to succeed. Stop trying to recreate their journey to success in your own life. Their way isn't your way. Please understand that their success was ultimately the result of their inner alignment and not the result of their actions or circumstances. Their consistent alignment with their best self brought about the circumstances that led them to a result or a reality that felt like that inner success. Those circumstances were a reflection of their alignment rather than the cause of their success. Those circumstances aren't the secret to success. Your alignment is. They don't hold the power. You do. All you have to do is focus on aligning with your best self and let your way unfold naturally. So the line in here that says those circumstances were talking about the other person's success. Those circumstances were a reflection of their alignment rather than the cause of their success. Those circumstances aren't the secret to success. Your alignment is. Your alignment is the key to your success. I for a long time, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that. I assumed that because someone else did something, quote, successful, that must be the right way. And so that's what I should do. And as a result of that, I tried to do what those people did. And because I thought it was the right way, or that those people had it like way more figured out than me, I spent a lot of time copying other people trying to get their results. And maybe you can relate to this, but doing so never worked for me. And I couldn't figure out why. Like, why? It works for them. Why isn't it working for me? And now, looking back on that and knowing what I know, I can so clearly see that the reason why it never worked for me is because it simply was not in alignment with me. What they were doing never really felt right to me. It often felt wrong. And in most cases, I couldn't understand the why behind what the person did to be successful. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And so, as it turns out, their why wasn't my why, so it was never going to make sense. And this really, I can so clearly remember this with my personal finance blog. This happened all the time. Like, because I saw somebody else be successful, I assumed that was the right way and the only way. And so I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of energy copying them. And instead of doing what felt right to me, or what I enjoyed, or what I thought was right, I spent all the time, all my effort, all my energy, banging my head against the wall, trying to get my results to be the same as what others were. And back then, even especially with blogging, copying the models were encouraged, right? And I think you even find that today for anyone starting a blog or trying to promote themselves on social media. We have all these so-called experts, right? Recommending that you do, X, Y, Z. But no one is really talking about doing the things if you believe in them, right? Like, no one's talking about it as, here's some things that worked for me. Take what you like from that and apply it, right? It's coming more from that place of, you must do this to be successful, right? Like the forced, like, you have to follow this 10-point checklist in order to be successful. And if you don't, you're a failure. And nobody even talks about, especially like if you even like doing those things, right? Like that doesn't even come up, right? It's really, to me, it seems to be all about the hustle. And so, for that reason, most people are suggesting you copy them to get the results that they did, and assuming their way is the only way or their way is the right way. But it's not, right? Like no one's way is your way. Right? No one's way is your way. Your way is the only way. And that's why I wanted to talk about this topic this week, because I think making your own rules and being able to live like unapologetically that way is, to me, as I'm learning more about this, and I'm going to give you some examples of this when we get into this, but that to me is like the only way to live, like to fully live. And this ties so well into our topic this month of showing up and fully expressing yourself. And I think you most certainly can't do that by copying someone else, right? So I want to share a recent example in my own life where I did this, where I showed up as me, I made my own rules, and what the results were. So a few weeks ago, I went on a date with this guy, and as I was getting ready for the date, I started to go through my mental routine of the judgment, right? Like judging how I was going to look on this date, like what this guy was going to think of me, like, because this date was pretty last minute. Like we had only, I don't even think we had been like talking 24 hours yet, right? It was just like I think it was a Friday night, and it was, hey, messages back and forth. And then he was like, what are you doing tomorrow? Do you want to go out? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I didn't know a ton about this guy. And so I was going through, like I said, in my mind, my mental, like the thought pattern that automatically comes up when I get ready for a date. And I was thinking like, what's he going to think of me? How is this going to go? Like, what should I do? How should I be? And in this long list just kept going, right? And it was like this default setting for me. And this day, I took a stand for myself and I said, no, that's not how this is going to go. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do something different this time. I'm doing something different for myself this time. And so as I started to get ready, I was, instead of the negative stuff, I just started envisioning myself looking and feeling good, right? Like I wore an outfit that I felt really good in, and I was mentally preparing myself like, this is me. Like I'm showing up as me. Like this is who I am. You get to see the true me, and you can take it or leave it, right? Like you can take it or leave it, but this is me. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not showing, like, I'm not sending the representative of myself, right? Like the fake version of myself for the date. Like this is me. I'm showing up as me. And I get to do that, right? I get to show up and fully express myself exactly who I am. And that's just perfect, and that's good enough. I'm enough, I'm worthy, and that's how this is going to go, right? Like that's how this is going to go. And as I started doing that, I was like pumping myself up, right? I was feeling really good, like really, really good, really open and really good. And so I go on this date, and we were going to meet at this place. We were going to go dancing, of course, what I love to do. And we had this mix up where we were going to meet. And we were going to meet at this place called Plaza Mariachi, which is a place where we go dance. But Plaza Mariachi is its own building inside another plaza. And so I thought he was saying to meet at this restaurant. I thought he was talking about meeting at the restaurant in Plaza Mariachi, like inside that actual part, but he was actually talking about the restaurant in the plaza where Plaza Mariachi sits. And so we had this mix up, and he was texting me, and then the texts weren't going through. And finally he called me, and I'm like, I'm inside. Where, like, I had no idea what he was thinking of this restaurant. And so anyway, I was getting a little, like, as I was sitting there waiting on him, I was a little bit like, and I was like, no, you know what? This is how this is going to go. This is me. Like, I'm showing up, and here I am. And so he came in, and we met, and and I think he was still a little rattled, because he told me later that he thought I showed up, like he saw a car pull up that had two girls. He thought I was with a friend, and I was like, what? No, like it was all this stuff, right? Like all these stories starting to get made up, and I was like, no, I would never show up with a friend on a date, right? And so anyway, we meet and we go to dinner and hit it off, and we're having like this great time, right? And so we go dance, and then we go to another place dancing, and as this night went on, like, and we stayed out till like 2 a.m, and we literally had the best night. Like it was so fun. And so as the night was going on, there were things coming up for me that I usually would have freaked out about or obsessed about or overanalyzed. But this whole time with him, like I just chose to do it differently. I chose not to let myself go down those old negative paths that I used to do. And I kept choosing myself. Like I kept taking a stand for myself. Like I kept just being like, no, this is me. I get to show up. Here I am. Take it or leave it. And so there was this particular point in the night, as an example, where this place was really crowded where we went to dance, and he like wrapped his arm around my waist. And for a second, like he was like helping me like move through the people. Right. And so for a second, I like cringed, and I was like, oh my God, like don't touch my fat rolls. You know what I mean? Like there's a part, I'm sure like everyone can relate to that. Like, oh, like don't touch my fat rolls. And I was like, nope, this is me, fat rolls and all, right? This is who I am. I'm not hiding from anyone anymore. I'm not trying to fake it. Like the things that I perceive as my imperfections, which probably he didn't even notice anything like that, right? He's like, oh, that's her stomach, like whatever. And I was like, no, I'm not going to let myself, no, I'm not doing those things to myself anymore. Nope, not doing it. And so as the night went on, the interesting part of this that I noticed was he just kept complimenting me. Like he kept complimenting me, like how pretty I was. And he would be like, oh, you're like, you just look so good. And you have like you're dancing and you're just like, you look so hot, you know, and all this stuff. And he's just telling me all this like nice stuff. And I was like, okay, this is good, right? And again, what I used to do, I would have been like, no, that's not true. He's just saying this shit. He just wants to like, you know, whatever, you know, who knows, right? I would have made up a bunch of shit. And I was like, no, nope. I accept these. I accept all these compliments. I didn't try to block them. I didn't try to deny them. I just let myself have them. And the difference in this, like the difference in showing up this way and really truly being myself was like insane. I mean, like all these years that I've been dating and I have been trying to hide my true self. And the first time I consciously show up and really and truly be me, we literally, like, this was probably the best date of my life with this guy because I was me. Like, I was me. I was so comfortable. I was having so much fun and I was me. Like, I wasn't hiding anymore. And so since that date, I mean, we've been out several times, talk a lot on the phone, and I continue to show up like this. I continue to show up being me, like free from anxiety, free from the stories, and just free from the bullshit that I used to like weigh myself down with. And it's been such a life-changing experience for me. Like, and it, like so much so that I didn't even know this was an option for living. Like I did not know being able to do this and show up this way was an option for living because I spent so many years running from myself and trying to hide the true me, like so long doing that. So I've talked about here before in the course I'm in right now called Body Built by Love. And Steph Hindle is the creator of Body Built by Love, and she's one of the sponsors of the show. And so when I was talking in the group, we were talking about this in the group, in our Body Built by Love group. And and a lot of what I've learned is from that course, right? It's being able to show up and fully express myself. It's being able to be me. It's being able to know that I'm enough, right? I'm complete. Like there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing broken. I don't have to fix it, right? Like all of this kind of stuff that I'm learning, that not only as it relates to like my body, but it's how it's like intertwined with relationships, like in how I used to show up, right, and hide and wear the mask and all this kind of stuff. So I was talking about it in our Body Built by Love group, and you know, and I said in the group, I know for a fact this is the first time in my life that I've ever shown up with a guy and fully, truly was myself, like just fully, truly myself, and just how different of an experience that was for me, and being able to just do this, right? Like make my own rules for this, like not buy into my own bullshit that I used to say, but really totally be me, decide how I wanted it to go, and not let those old thoughts or patterns try to control me. Like I made my own rules with myself of how I was going to show up and do it, and it was totally, totally worth it. And so, speaking of Body Built by Love, I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll hear a little bit more about Body by Love, and I'll continue that thought right after the break.
Thanks for listening to Create What You Speak, now sponsored by Steph Hindle and her Body Built by Love community, where women around the world are realizing that they are not broken and are losing the weight they've been struggling with for years through learning to love themselves again.
Okay, so before the break, I was talking about just how I fully showed up on my date as me, and how I had never done that before, and how mind-blowing that was for me. Just mind-blowingly amazing to have it go so well, right? And like I said, I can tell you for sure that I've never done that before. And it's like now I feel like I've finally learned this long and painful lesson of not hiding myself anymore. Like in the past, I can see so clearly when I showed up and I was hiding, or if something went some way I didn't think it should go, or like the touching of the fat rolls would have happened prior to this, right? I would have, my thought patterns would have just went so like out of bounds, right? They would have been like just so negative. And I would have unintentionally like pushed the person away because of that. Like because my energy would have gotten so low as I was beating myself up with those thoughts. But like I said, not anymore for me. I took a stand for myself. I showed up as me, and I've seen how that feels. Like now I know, like I have an example of how I know that for myself, and I never want to go back to any other way. Never. I don't even think now it's like what you see, you can no longer unsee, right? Like now I've seen it. I've seen it in my own life, and I'm not going back any other way. And so as I thought about this for today's show, about just making your own rules, right? And what that means as part of showing up and expressing yourself. And I was thinking a lot about the times when I really just thought the answers were outside of me. Like I felt like I had to copy someone else. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, how I used to copy people with my personal finance blog. But I can look back and see how I've done this in other areas of my life. Like trying to be a certain way, maybe like with work, because I thought, oh, she's successful that way, so maybe I should do it that way. Or even thinking about like exercise or like dieting, right? Like, well, because they did it that way, it has to be right, so I should copy that. But all the while, like none of those things ever worked, right? They didn't work for me, but I was forcing something that wasn't really meant for me anyway. And so, like I said, copying, it never worked for me. And I'm sure you can look back at the times in your life when you've tried to emulate someone and it never worked for you either. Because when we do that, we're not being authentic, right? Like we aren't showing up and fully expressing ourselves, and we're putting on like this mask that hides the true us. And as a result, we're fearful, we're unhappy, we're like this robotic shell of a version of ourselves trying to fit in. And we will never fit in that way. And the people we do watch, like, if you think about the people that maybe you look up to or you want to be like on like social media, right? We often assume that they have it all together, but maybe they don't, right? Like maybe we're copying people that don't even have it together anyway. And I think that's one of the I don't know if it's actually funny or if it's more like just this, like the irony of this veil we put over ourselves to like, we need to do it some other way, like that the answers are outside of us, but that's just not true, right? Like people can seem to have it together on the outside, but on the inside, it may be something totally different. And so we may be trying to copy someone who doesn't really have it together to begin with. So why would we want to do that, right? Like, why would we want to do that? And I say that a lot on the show about, I definitely don't want anybody to copy me, right? I say this on the show, take what works for you and leave the rest, right? Like this show is just to open up your mind. It's to give you another perspective. It's to give you different ways of looking at and thinking of things. And then my intention for you is to take that and apply it in your own life, right? Like no one else has the answers but you. And I just don't think, we never have any idea of what's going on with anyone else but ourselves, right? Like we can't even begin to understand what's going on in other people's minds and hearts and, in their thoughts. And we don't need to copy people to get where we want to go, right? Like we don't. There is no need to, because we are safe to show up and fully express ourselves exactly as we are. Like we can make our own rules. We can be our own person. We can take pieces from whatever other people have done, and we can use what works for us and create our life that way. And we can really be our authentic and true selves and get what we want, right? And just this copying others or feeling like the answer is outside of us, so that we don't, that we're not good enough or we're not worthy of having our own way or, making our own rules, is just, it's got to go, right? Like there's no room for this anymore. Like it's done. Like this topic is just done. And I just think it's time that we all just stand up for ourselves, like take a stand for yourself and make your own rules. We have to stop looking outside of ourselves for answers and trust that we know what's best for us, right? It's time that we stop thinking we have to do anything any certain way and start to recognize that when we show up fully as ourselves, this is when the magic happens, right? This is the good stuff. Just like on my date, like I showed up, I was no longer hiding from him or from myself or from anyone. I was me. And this seriously blew my mind. Like, it was like I had no idea I could even exist this way. And it was way better than I had ever existed before. And so for today, I want you to know that it's totally, totally worth making your own rules. It's worth looking inward at yourself, at what you want, and start identifying what works for you, and do that, right? Like, do what works for you. And like we talked about last week, like following those impulses when you get them, and following them instead of fighting them or acting like that they're bad or something, they're not. Those impulses are the answers that you're looking for. And I think being able to tune into your own needs and what works for you, and most importantly, what you want, right? It's a far more effective plan than playing like the copying game the rest of your life, right? And so I tell you all this week because as we wrap up this month's magical intention of showing up and fully expressing yourself, I just think it's time we start to make our own rules in life. I mean, it's just time. And this is so worth figuring out. Like, the date that I used as the example is, and now I'm doing this in other areas, right? Like I'm seeing the power I had in that, and I can do that everywhere else, right? Like I can do that in other areas of my life. And so I want to read again the message that I read at the beginning of the show from the person I follow on Instagram called A Message of Love, as it talked about making your own rules and just no longer needing to look to others for the answer. So I want to read this again. There's no need to do what other people did to succeed. Stop trying to recreate their journey to success in your own life. Their way isn't your way. Please understand that their success was ultimately the result of their inner alignment and not the result of their actions or their circumstances. Their consistent alignment with their best self brought about the circumstances that led them to a result or a reality that felt like inner success. Those circumstances were a reflection of their alignment rather than the cause of their success. Those circumstances aren't the secret to success. Your alignment is. They don't hold the power, you do. All you have to do is focus on aligning with your best self and let your way unfold naturally. So following someone else's path is never going to serve you. And the key I think that I love from that quote that they put is it's about following your own alignment, right? Your alignment, and what I mean by alignment is you're feeling good, right? You're feeling good about yourself, right there. And we've talked many episodes about this, but that's what I mean by alignment. So finding that alignment with yourself and acting, that's where your magic is. And if we all don't learn to show up and fully be ourselves, flaws and all, we're going to spend the rest of our lives hiding from who we are, and I just don't think we'll ever be happy. So as you move forward this week, how can you start to make your own rules in your own life? How can you start to tune into yourself and what you really want? And where can you start to be more authentic instead of looking to everyone else for the answers and just assuming that they're right? Because their answers are not going to be your answers. And so as we start to close out here, I just want to leave you with the magical intention to take away for the week. So again, our topic this week was making your own rules and just how worth it that is. And it ties into our monthly theme of showing up and fully expressing yourself. And the magical intention to take away this week is you make the rules in your life. People will try to tell you how it is or how it will be, or that if it's this, then it's that. But all that's a lie. That's not your truth. Your life is what you want it to be. This is your life. You get to make the rules. You get to decide. You get to decide if it's easy. You get to decide if it's hard. You get to decide if you're going to believe those old shitty thoughts or if you're going to choose new ones. You get to decide, right? You get to decide. And you deserve the best. You deserve the best. So show up for yourself, take a stand for yourself, and trust yourself. And most importantly, I hope you start to believe that you do have the power in all of this, right? You have the power in all of this, and it is so worth it. All right, so I'm going to talk about the songs for this week, and then I'll close this out. So the intro song I chose was I Want More by Kaleo, K-A-L-E-O, Kaleo. I'm not sure if that's how you say it, but that's who they are. So it's a newer song. It's called I Want More. And so I love that. I saw them play at the Ryman here probably a couple of years ago. Just excellent. The lead singer is just, I love his voice and just his, he plays this guitar that's just a really interesting way to play it, and absolutely love the show. And so this, like I said, a newer song for them. And here's the lyrics that I love. If you leap, I'll come falling too, running deep till that river's through. I don't mind what you have to do, because I won't think less of you. Yes, I want more. I'm looking for more. I want more. And the song, I think, is about like in a relationship, like wanting more with the person, right? Like showing up and really wanting more with the person. And what I liked about this song, though, as it applied to this week, is I wanted more. Like the way I showed up on the date with the guy, and the way I was, and the way I was unapologetic about it, and I'm me, this is who I am. Like, I want more of that, right? Like, I want to live more like that. I want every day to be like that. I want every interaction to be like that, right? No more hiding. Like, I want more of that good, like, I can't even believe that I get to live this way kind of like feeling and thoughts in my mind. And so that's what this song reminded me of when I was thinking about songs for this week. But also I liked it because I wanted more with the guy, right? Like, I wanted more interaction with him. I wanted more like of this goodness, like this feels good, right? So intro song, I Want More by Kaleo. Outro song is Long Way Around by the Dixie Chicks. And so this song to me is about like not following the path, right? Like making your own rules. Like everybody's doing it this way, but I'm taking the long way around, right? I'm doing it differently and I'm going to get where I want to go, but I'm taking the long way around. And so one of my favorite parts of the song is she says, well, I fought with a stranger and I met myself. I opened my mouth and I heard myself. It can get pretty lonely when you show yourself. Guess I could have made it easier on myself. And then she talks about I could never follow. And she says, I never seem to do it like anyone else. Maybe someday I'm going to settle down. But if you ever want to find me, I can still be found, taking the long way around. And I love it. I just love it. That song is such a great, I feel like it fits so well with the theme this week because it's about making your own rules and really, really being able to show up and express yourself in a way that works for you. All right, that's it for this week on our topic of making your own rules. I would love to know what you think of this episode. If you have questions, I would love to hear from you. You can email me, sloanfremont@gmail.com. My website is sloanfremont.com. And you can also find me on Instagram, Facebook @sloanfremont. If you like the podcast, please remember, subscribe, rate, review, tell all your friends so people can find it. So thanks for listening this week. And remember, make the most of the magic at hand because there is always magic around you.
Well,